Nancy and Bess are at a music festival in western Massachusetts. There's a major piano competition here. The 3 finalists will perform on Monday with a symphony orchestra. And of course, one of them is a hot guy who falls in love with Nancy.
Argo Funk Book Review, Argo Funk Book Review.
Bess insists on going horseback riding, where they meet 2 of the finalists. Keiko Yamamoto is thrown from her horse and injures her wrist. Nancy determines this is sabotage. Someone cut the strap and put a burr onto the horse's skin. Ted Martinelli is very handsome. He offers to find Nancy a room at his dorm. An electric shock goes through her when she meets his eyes. Nancy is confused by her reaction. Since when does she have physical responses to any man besides Ned? Nancy thinks this like she didn't cheat on Ned for the past 5 books in a row. They all have a picnic together, where Nancy meets the 3rd finalist, Alexander Polayakin. Alexander made a mushroom salad for everyone. It turns out the salad is poisoned. Alexander is rushed to the hospital. Sure, Nancy feels bad for Alexander, but she's more worried. Oh no, what if the culprit attacks Ted next? Not Ted. Ted takes Nancy sailing, where she meets the 2 semi-finalists, Maura and Jean-Claude. Nancy feels a sensation of real pleasure when Ted puts his arm around her. Jean-Claude says he can't swim or sail. Shortly after, he rents a boat and crashes it into Nancy's. Dude, what's your problem, Jean-Claude? Nancy learns Maura was the victim of a food poisoning incident last year, and Ted invites Nancy out on a hike. Ted, don't you have a piano competition to prepare for? How does he have the free time to schedule 3 impromptu meetups with Nancy? That's not including the horse riding trip where they first met. Ted goes to get a sweater from his room. He returns 20 minutes later with blood on his hands. He claims the culprit was waiting in his room and knocked him unconscious. He doesn't want to see a doctor or get the police involved. Nancy doesn't find this suspicious at all. She is such a smart detective. Let's think logically. All of the finalists and semi-finalists were attacked once. Unless the culprit is an outsider, that means the culprit purposely pretended to be attacked. Only 1 attack had no witnesses, so that's the one which is most likely to be fake. Kurt Lucas, one of the competition judges, suddenly drops out. This is good news for Ted's chances, since Kurt is his biggest critic. Kurt confesses he was blackmailed into quitting. Kurt's big secret is that he did not properly credit the co-writer for one of his hit Broadway songs. Let me guess, the song is called The Sabotage Shuffle. Ted invites everyone to a rock club. The culprit puts a hazard sign in the middle of the road. Nancy almost gets hurt dodging it. Alexander stops to help Nancy, and she later overhears him conspiring with the new judge. Ted is a great dancer. It feels wonderful to be in his arms. He kisses Nancy, and things take a dark turn when someone drugs Nancy's drink. Just before she passes out on the dance floor, Nancy hears someone playing Kurt's famous song. Nancy figures this is too much of a coincidence. No way would somebody play a famous song of Kurt's while Kurt is in the local news. Nope, that's guilty culprit stuff. That musician must be the culprit. There are only 10 pages left in the book, so Nancy doesn't have a lot of time to solve the mystery. She searches for clues in the practice rooms. She remembers Ted hummed Kurt's song while he was dancing with her. That means Ted must be the culprit. How could the hot guy be a villain? Ted must also be a mind reader, because he knows he's been caught without being told. He turns off the lights and starts choking Nancy to death. Nancy is saved when Kurt and Bess enter the room. The book skips ahead to an hour later, where Nancy explains everything to Bess, like Nancy is a smart person who knows all the details and solved the entire mystery 3 days ago. The end. Post-book follow-up. I didn't like the culprit capture in this book. Just because Ted hummed a famous song, that doesn't prove he's guilty. It was still pretty dumb of him to publicly hum and play the song that he's using as blackmail, though. Maybe he was trying to taunt Nancy. I didn't like the Nancy-Ted romance, although the part that annoyed me wasn't the romance itself, as much as the fact that Nancy kept refusing to think of Ted as a suspect because she thinks he's hot. Ted is not the first guy who has used romance to keep himself off of Nancy's suspect list. She needs to cancel the rule that hot guys aren't suspects. The book has a problem with characters being gone for over 60 pages. That happened with Kurt, Alexander, Jean-Claude, and Keiko. As a result, I half forgot about those characters, and I was confused when they returned. I suppose that means Mara and Ted were the only suspects who regularly appeared. While I didn't like this book overall, it is better than the previous book, where Nancy ignored the mystery the whole time. Here, she's pretty well focused on the mystery, even though she goes on many side trips. The mystery solution is contrived, but at least it's not weird and convoluted. I give Nancy Drew Files number 109, Love Notes, a 3 out of 10.